Hello, my name is Robbie Mountain. This is my informative speech for Public Speaking 101. Thank you for your time. Appreciate you listening. First off, let's talk about grief as a part of life. I want to talk about the grief and loss process, and the 5 stages of grief are not entirely wrong. We've got denial, as pictured here, that comes in all forms. There's anger, and that's another one that can be masking other feelings. There's depression, as you could see, it totally rids you of positive thought. And then bargaining usually comes with your religion or your faith in yourself or your other friends and loved ones. And then everybody comes to the acceptance stage, and we want to talk about that as well. Um, Now let's talk about why the 5 stages are wrong. Um, Even Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, that started the 5 stages in 1969, she later regretted and was regretting that she was misread with her 5 stages. They were originally intended for terminal patients, and the grief and loss process, it's a great, the 5 stages are good for a starting point for getting the information out there, for helping people put a label on it. And it's been a great tool to get counseling and for psychologists to use. But why the 5 stages are wrong, even Elizabeth Kubler-Ross said that everybody does not proceed in a linear fashion and predictable fashion. David B. Feldman, PhD, talks about lessons, and this is a great tool. Lessons 1: a little denial is natural remedy for helping our brain and dosing it in smaller amounts. Lesson 2: grief can shake our faith, not just religious, in ourselves and others in the future. And lesson number 3: grief usually leads to acceptance with time. Grief softens. The 5 stages are not completely wrong, although we all don't process in order. The 5 stages have given a good baseline to seek help and look at grief from a good starting point to manage. Now, number 3, let's talk about grief as a part of life. Uh, there's not Elizabeth, Melanie Cooler also talked about prayers and them being a therapeutical tool, even if it's not for religious reasons. The words from prayers can be therapeutic to repeat and replace negative thought, saying them internally or out loud. And when you're using canned phrases, when you're consoling people that are in grief and loss, using canned phrases like "I'm sorry for your loss" is wrong. I know people do mean well, but that's just feeding the negative emotions. And I made this little chart for. I mean, let's face it. We have our memories. We have our memories, and it does not have to be loss. It can be this. It can be your loved one with your dog. It can be a highway that you went on, a, a really serene road that you walked down. It doesn't have to be this. It doesn't have to be depression. It doesn't have to be a loss. Losses are that, but they're not entirely wrong. You always have your good memories. Uh, finally, I would like to talk about. Finally, I'd like to talk about. I covered what I did is I covered that grief is a part of life. Everybody deals with grief and loss in their own ways, and there are ways to cope with grief and loss. Um, and that usually everybody it does accept it. It's just less painful, and your memories are always going to be there. It's how you deal with your memories that make it count. Um, well, thank you very much. I appreciate your time, and thank you for this time talk about grief and loss.